Hi, welcome to Gary's Hobby Studio. In this video I'm going to go over the top 5 things that you should consider before you start using Plex Media Server. It's things that I've experienced and learned, and in a lot of different ways, both reading and actually doing. So let's get started. The number one thing you should decide is, are you going to run it on actual hardware, or are you going to run it as a virtual machine? The upside to hardware is that, once you get your operating system configured, whether it's Windows, Ubuntu, Fedora, Mac OS, or anything of the kind, it's running directly on that. So the only thing you would have to make sure is you have enough memory for the operating system plus the software and whatever else that you're going to be running. If it's going to be multi-use computer, I would advise against it, just because then there's more stuff taking up the same resources. You would have to probably max everything out, at least memory-wise, to help everything run. The nice thing about virtual machine is that you can set up a specific virtual machine to just run that, and that's it. I have mine running on a virtual machine, and it's running. It was running really good. The only problem I had then was the fact that when I was trying to stream 4K, it didn't work. But I corrected that, which will be covered in one of the other topics. So that's the biggest thing you need to decide. Is it going to be actual hardware, or is it going to be a virtual machine?
Penny said she's not sure.
And sorry about that. I had my cable box on. if you heard it. Okay. So number 2, if you're going virtual, there's a couple of different ways you could do it. You can run it on, say, a full-fledged hypervisor like EXSI, yeah. Sometimes my mouth doesn't work right. You can also run it on XCPNG. You can also run it on Proxmox. There's 2 other ones that you can do with it too. One is Unraid, and the other one is TrueNAS, which is the successor to FreeNAS. The nice thing about running on a bare metal hypervisor is that it's very, stripped down operating system. It's just geared for this, to run your virtual machines, and you can run more than one depending upon how much system resources you have. You could possibly do it with VirtualBox, but that runs on top of an OS, so it adds, in my opinion, a little more complexity to it. I don't know. I haven't really... I've done kind of tests, but not like, will it work all the time or anything. So, as far as that goes, I don't know how well VirtualBox will work, but I do run it on Proxmox. It was running good. Like I said, if I was running 1080p or lower resolution content, worked fine. I only ran into some major buffering every time whenever I ran 4K video files, which I'll touch on that later. So if you're going to go virtual, you've got a wide range of possibilities, because like I said, the nice thing about Unraid and TrueNAS is that they also handle your storage. They have their pluses and minuses. My storage is, and I'll link my video for my hobby server room area. Mine are 24-bay cases. They are iSCSI SANs, and they are connected by a 10G network cable. I don't have a 10G switch, so I have them kind of directly connected to each other. So that way, the only 10G connections is from the 710 up to the Unify switch, the 48-port switch, and then I have a 10G connection from the 420 to it. That way, when it says, "Hey, Gary wants to stream," which we just did tonight, the 4K version of V for Vendetta, they both have a 10G connection, so this way all virtual machines are running at 10G, which helps with the transfer. And then That way, you know, because I think I've done like a couple of streams where one's to the TV, one's to my phone, and it's on the actual home network, and it actually kept up because my house runs 1G, you know, a gig connection all the way around, including internet. I don't know how you have your house set up, so if you're running 10/100, it's a little slower. You may run into some buffering problems, but again, that's how, there's ways around that, but it's not for this tutorial or these recommendations. So the next, back one more thing about if you go with either Unraid or TrueNAS. TrueNAS does not support PCI or GPU pass-through. Unraid does, and certain NASs, which you would have to look into, they support using an NVIDIA card in it. I read it somewhere. You would have to look in the forums. If I can, I'll post a link in the video description that goes over it. Because I think it did mention it there. That's the only thing. Unraid will support GPU pass-through, so if you would build something like what I have, but you're using Unraid, you can do GPU pass-through. If you use TrueNAS, at this point in time, it doesn't support it. And I think that's due to the fact that they use FreeBSD, and I don't know if FreeBSD has that, or if it does have it, they may not have ported that functionality over to it because they may not feel that it's a top priority. I don't know. If somebody knows anything about FreeBSD 12, post it in the comments below, because I don't know. I'm just guessing. All right, so the next thing is storage. Are you going to go with internal storage or external storage? Internal storage is if you're running it on straight hardware, like, you know, it's a computer box, has Windows or whatever flavor of Linux that you want to run it on. That's all kinds of, you know, you stick a bunch of hard drives in it to store everything. I would recommend some kind of a RAID. If it has if it has 8 ports, put 4 drives in, stripe it, and then mirror it to the other set. That way, if a drive fails, at least your data doesn't go poof. If you just stripe everything in a RAID 0, if you lose one drive, you lose everything. There's no recovery for that. And as I always like to say, RAID is not a backup. And I have a nice picture of a tank, and it says RAID is not a backup. It's just a funny meme for us IT people. You definitely don't want to. Now, if you have no qualms that if you lose all your data, you're more than welcome to do it. Me personally, after the time spent ripping, converting, and putting it on my server, I will be perfectly honest with you, I don't want to do that again. Do I still have the disks for everything? Yes. Do I want to spend that time re-ripping everything? No, not at all. That's just me. So that would be internal. You also have to realize too that, you know, you'll hit the max, then you have to either add another controller card if your case has more spaces for drives, or you get those converters to convert 5 1/4 to 3 1/2, or, you know, whatever. Just do realize you're going to have to add more. Now, the nice thing I like about using, currently it's FreeNAS. I'm going to be upgrading it to TrueNAS at some point. I'm waiting for like the first update for it before I do it. My cases have 24 bay drives. I have a card that can control 24 in the bottom one. The one at the top is 2 rows short. I need to get another same card that I just bought for that one for the upper one. Then all 6 rows, because each one has 6 rows at 4 drives apiece. And the nice thing about TrueNAS, once I update it, is that if you replace the drives one at a time with larger drives, and it goes through the reslivering to, you know, spread the data back out so it's on every drive. Once you get that final one in, it auto will increase. So if I put in 4 16 drives, and yeah, it'll take 4 days to do it, to swap each one in and out. But once you upgrade those to from 10 to 16, you now have 4 16 gig drives, and the storage already increases. So that's the nice thing about it. You don't have to back up everything, destroy it, recreate it, unless there's a problem, which could happen. I have mine mirrored so that my primary storage unit mirrors everything to the secondary. So, and that's an in-house backup. I still need to do an external backup of stuff so that if the house becomes a smoking crater, everything's backed up and all I have to do is just re-pull it down. But that's later in the thing. So you need to decide, or and then if you're going to use one of those external disk stations, like from QNAP and I can't think of the other one. It'll probably come to me as I'm talking. You got to realize too, those things usually have 1 gigabit connectors. Now sometimes you can add, if you go through and check their manual, you can add a 10G card, and if you have a 10G switch, whether it's a fiber connector or an Ethernet connector, at least that'll give it speed so that as it's transcoding, it can get, and you can do multiple devices streaming to the thing. That's how I do mine. You just got to keep an eye on that because a 1G connection maxes out at 125 megabytes. So, and SSDs can max that out. I even think some spinning drives can also max that out, especially in a RAID configuration. So, you got to watch the speed on that. Now, for external, granted, if you're using one of those disk stations where it's multiples in one thing, Synology, that's it. That's the other one, Synology. That's external, but that's using a network connection, so that's kind of different, just because of the speed wise. I don't recommend you building a computer and then once you max out in your drives internally, you start plugging in USB drives. USB to me is, in my opinion, unstable. Well, I wouldn't say it's unstable. It's can have issues. Sometimes, like, I have a couple of hard drives connected to my laptop, and a lot of times I hear the drive motors spin up and then they'll spin down. And I don't know how well Plex would handle that. Could have a problem. I don't recommend it. To me, I just don't think the USB connection is stable, is fast enough, or can stay awake long enough to be able to provide decent transfer speeds. Now, again, I haven't done it. If anybody has, again, please feel free, leave comments below. I'm more than welcome to learn new things. That's why I'm always on the internet, reading about things, investigating things. Have to write things down because I sometimes don't remember. But yeah, to me, I don't recommend it. But if somebody else has different, history with it, like I said, leave the comments down below. Okay, so video content resolution. Again, I didn't have a problem prior to doing 4K video. Being able to stream it from down here to my server to upstairs in my living room on my Xbox. 1080p content, DVD resolution content, 720p content, all that stuff ran fine without a problem. The only time I ran into a problem was when I did go to 4K. Also, the video file sizes are bigger too. That also takes up space, so it might be something you might want to consider. So if you have 1 gigabit in your house, 1080p probably won't be a problem at all. The only problem I ran into when I was doing 1080p was, and I don't know if it was the application for the Xbox or what, it wouldn't play DTS audio. It would play Dolby Digital audio, but it wouldn't do DTS. And the only way I could play DTS video files is if I use the Kodi KODI media player that's available for the Xbox, install the Plex Media Player plugin, then I could play 1080p DTS audio, and then the regular Plex Media Server app or Media Player app for the Xbox, I could play Dolby Digital content without a problem. Although I did think I did have a couple of hiccups, but not too bad, which totally ticked me off. Now I think think now, I don't know if they fixed the app or because of the transcoding and the card handling the transcoding of the video, even though I've recompressed it using that same card with that VM. I don't know if that's handling enough to where the processor can handle the DTS audio, like the CPU or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what's doing it, but I know DTS has been working without going to the Kodi app, which I like one app to do it, not 50. And I hate that because my computer, phone, littered with apps that do almost the same thing, but this one has a feature that this one doesn't have. It drives me nuts. So if you're going to do 4K content, you might want to look at the doing the GPU pass-through using the hardware transcoding. I think the next time I do 4K video, I want to put the actual video file, full-size video file, see if it'll stream it. I know the recompressing using Handbrake with that card has been phenomenal. They look fine to me. Maybe somebody else's eyes like, I don't like the way that looks, which is possible, but to me it looks fine. But yeah, 1080p down should be fine on a gigabit connection. I don't know about a 10100. 4K is fine on a gigabit connection if it's recompressed or use that hardware transcoding feature of Plex. And you should be able to stream it without a problem. The final thing is power backup and also backup too, which will, because I touched on that earlier. As far as power, again, when you look at my video of my hobby area downstairs, I'll do the most recent one because I think I did touch on it a little bit. If not, the first one's on my account and you can, on the channel, and you can go through it. I have 3 APC rack mountable units. I have 2 of them working. I still need to get the third one working. You need some kind of backup in case if the power goes out so that you got enough time to shut it down. I've seen that if things are running and it just shuts off, I've seen where, you know, Windows will start getting funky. I've also seen where people that decide to close the lid and let it go to sleep, and then it has all kinds of issues. And the best way to keep your operating system from becoming corrupt is to shut it down properly. I recommend getting something that'll give you at least 10 to 15 minutes because sometimes Windows takes forever. Plus, not only that, sometimes Windows goes, oh, guess what? There's updates that you have to install. Perfect timing when the power goes out and you're trying to turn it off, right? So basically, you definitely need some kind of battery backup unit. Look for something that'll give you 10 minutes. The only 2 things that I would recommend you plug into the battery side on that is the computer and the monitor, because you need those 2 to be able to shut your machine down. The nice thing about newer monitors, they're not as power hungry as the old CRTs. Picture tubes, in case somebody doesn't know what that is. You need that so that you can see it to shut it down. Don't plug in anything frivolous like a printer or a scanner, because those you don't need. You can plug everything else that doesn't need power to stay on long enough for you to shut it down on the surge protector side. You don't need to buy anything as big as mine unless you are running a lot of stuff like what I am. Then yeah, you would definitely need something that large. And I also recommend to, unless, like I said, unless you don't care if you lose whatever, because it took me a while to find some movies that I have, and like I said, again, I don't want to re-rip this stuff. It's just a royal pain. You definitely want to do some kind of off-site storage. If you're not going to have a huge collection or anything of the kind, it's going to require terabytes of space. You know, if you think 8 terabytes will be fine because you're going to store either a DVD quality video, you're not going to store audio, you're not going to put your pictures on there, because you can do that stuff too if nobody's ever experienced it. Yeah, just buy a couple of maybe 10 terabyte external USB drives, plug them in, back the stuff up, and then you're done. If you're going to keep a lot, I would definitely recommend some kind of offsite storage. Not because this way, again, if my machines blow up and fry all the drives, or the house, like I said, the house burns down, or God only knows what. Believe me, I don't want that to happen, but, you know, grace of God, you know, asteroid 2020 decides to hit, at least this way I know the stuff will be protected. Now, granted, asteroid hits, that's a little different story. Everything's gone. You know, trying to be funny. I know, failing miserably. So yeah, so definitely backup of some type. Battery backup, definitely, to shut your machine down. Some kind of storage that you can, you know, take over to a friend's house, a family member's house. If you have a safety deposit box, you know, that way you have a backup copy of your stuff. And that way you don't have to go, oh man, I have to redo all that. So those are, to me, my 5 things. Decide if it's hardware or virtual. If you're going virtual, many different things. Like I said, you can do Unraid or you can do TrueNAS. Again, depends on if you're going to do 4K content. If you're going to do 4K, TrueNAS just is not going to be it because they don't have GPU pass-through. Internal or external. If you're just going to worry about however many drives that are internal to the case, kudos. External, the only thing I would recommend is like any kind of iSCSI target. And if your switch can do link aggregation, you can bond a couple of NICs together, like 1 gigabit ports together, and increase it. Plus, it also works for failover. If one stops working, you still have the other one. That would be the only thing I would recommend, is like an iSCSI target that's fast enough to be able to keep up. Don't recommend using USB drives unless, like I said, unless somebody's had better experience and can tell you what to do to avoid any kind of pitfalls. Definitely, you got to decide: are you going to do 4K? Are you going to do 1080 or less? 1080 or less should be fine on 1 gigabit without hardware transcoding. You also need a Plex Pass for that, so wait until they have it on sale. I got mine when it was still $75, and I know sometimes they have like a holiday. They might have something coming up because of Black Friday and that. You might want to check their site to where you can get it for like $75 instead of like $150. Because I did see that in their forum post about the GPU pass-through, and or not the GPU pass-through, but the hardware acceleration, hardware accelerated transcoding. And like I said, last thing, backup. Always recommend a backup. Do not trust RAID. RAID is not a backup. I wouldn't be running 2 units over there if I trusted RAID. Granted, I do like the fact that for TrueNAS, that if one drive if you set up as a RAID Z1, one drive goes, I can get a new drive. Hopefully, if I don't have any here, I order one, it comes in quick enough. Pull the bad drive out, swap it, throw it back in, it'll re-sliver, and everything doesn't lose, because that's, you know, Z1, Z2, and Z3 are like, you have 1 drive as parity, 2 drives as parity, 3 drives as parity. I have a Z1 until I can change that over to where all the drives are the same size. Then if I can do that, I'll change it to a Z3. That way I can have up to 3 drives fail and won't lose a thing. But currently each row, because they're independent setup, it's a Z1. So I can have 1 drive fail, which I did have one a while ago when I had like 3 terabyte drives in there. And I replaced, I was able to replace it because I had a spare one here, and that was fine. So, yeah, definitely do not trust RAID as a backup. Okay, on one other note before I go, the video from my last one that was talking about doing one of these security cameras with ZoneMinder. I have the software installed. Ran into a hiccup that when I was filming it that I couldn't get the camera to work. I think I found a web link that will tell me how to get the camera to work with the software, because it's an IP camera, it's not a USB. Once I get that, I will reshoot it, and I'll probably include maybe some fun clips of the frustration that I had as bonus footage at the end of that, once I get it all set up. So other than that, those are my 5 recommendations before you even start. And hopefully, if anybody's run into some issues or looking to expand, hopefully this might have helped you in some way. And as always, if you like the content, like, subscribe, you know, tell other people about it. You know, if you want anything discussed, gone over, you know, leave a comment below. If you want to see me live stream at some point, I don't know how many people I know from what I read that you can't live stream from like your phone to YouTube, but you can from the computer. So if you guys want me to live stream maybe on a weekend or something, you know, let me know that. And as always, hey, have a great day, guys.